Ocean, for me, is life.
Habitat.
Tourism.
Ocean is beautiful and sweet.
Bahari kwangu ni kama tu starehe.
Inatoa ajira kwa jamii.
Bahari ni mapato.
The world's oceans drive global systems that make the Earth habitable for humankind. The oceans also carry the bulk of the world's trade, are a major source of food and employment, and regulate the planet's weather, climate, and the air we breathe. Our understanding of the geologic, oceanic, and atmospheric processes of the Indian Ocean is rudimentary, since much of it remains undersampled. UNESCO's Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission and partners are coordinating the second International Indian Ocean Expedition to improve our relationship with the ocean through the development and dissemination of scientific knowledge.
The first expedition took place between 1959 and 1965. Since that time, there's been a rapid increase in population along the coast, which has led to different impacts by human beings on the oceans. We've had a lot of fishing taking place, we've had wastes disposed in the ocean, and also had significant changes in technologies. We now have satellites, we have modeling that can forecast events, and equipment like gliders, which can go to the depths of the ocean. The second expedition will involve all the countries that surround the Indian Ocean. Kenya, with this RV Mtafiti, will undertake studies in the northern part of the Western Indian Ocean. South Africa has also committed several of its research vessels. We also have vessels coming from outside the region.
First of all, I want to appreciate, I know they have been appreciated, they will be appreciated a lot more, our beautiful women engineers. Can they stand up one more time? Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we actually sat down, how can we be having the 5th African Engineering Week and the women? Not because we decided to seclude ourselves, but because we know that there are peculiar issues we need to do. We need to encourage ourselves. And we need to let our colleagues know, just like Emelda has said, that we are not mothers sitting with you, we are professionals sitting with you. And so you should see us as professionals.
We are in a cyclic era of water deficit. I know by now people are forgotten. In January this year, we had a very, very bad drought. By May, we were all swimming in floods, people are being swept away.
Goal number 9, innovation and infrastructure. Women in science and technology amount to about 45 to 55% of researchers, whereby only 1/5 the countries achieved this gender parity.
You only have the air blower providing air for aeration, and the same air is used to pump water from one chamber to the other.
If you're going to provide access, you need to tie it to value addition. In other words, can you provide some education for these women? Not just to use the energy to light, but to use the energy for productivity.
You cannot tell us there's a sect of human beings that cannot get children on account that they're engineers. When you're doing your employment, when you're doing your deployment to sites and everything else, please bear that in mind. And remember that this childbearing comes to an end at some point. It has to be done, and you have to recognize that, and you have to give us space to be engineers and to be mothers.
The World Ocean Day was designated by the UN General Assembly in 2008 to celebrate the oceans, to increase ocean literacy among the populations so that we know the benefits of the oceans and we learn how to look after the oceans. UNESCO's Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission is a lead agency in celebrating the World Oceans Day. Here in Kenya, we are planning to organize events together with Pwani University in Kilifi and Malindi to mark the World Oceans Day. We are targeting Pwani University because the youth are a key portion of our population. In Africa, the youth comprise more than 75% of the population. I normally say that Africa is young and blue because 75% of the population is young, and our ocean waters is 3 times the landmass.
As we know, Pwani University is right on the ocean, and it is its mandate that it develops programs that will look into the issues of marine sustainability and how the marine resources can actually be sustainably utilized. Yeah, the youth are the drivers of the sustainable ocean management, and I request and urge the youth to take proactive engagement as far as cleaning up the ocean, as far as taking up sustainable projects that will utilize the ocean resources in an amicable way.
Water scarcity is the lack of sufficient available water resources to meet the demands of water usage within a region. Africa is uniquely positioned on Earth. Most of its landmass is located along the tropical latitudes of Equator, Cancer and Capricorn, where it is possible to have the sun shining directly overhead most of the time. Due to such positioning of Africa, several and different climate types can be found within the continent. The sun is always shining across Africa, leading to warm and hot climates prevailing in most parts of Africa, with the northern part being the most affected by aridity and high temperatures. Africa is the second driest continent in the world after Australia, and suffers from severe water scarcity problems that encompass water stress and deficit. But water scarcity in the region is not necessarily caused by a physical lack of water. In fact, much of the region is generally considered to suffer from what's called economic water scarcity, which means that investments in water resources development and relevant human capacity are not substantial enough to meet water demands in an area. It is evident that more African countries are under economic water scarcity, of which could be addressed through cost-effective innovations and investments such as rainwater harvesting.
Gold mining has existed for hundreds of years in Kenya, largely concentrated in western regions of Nyanza and Rift Valley provinces. Many gold-rich areas remain largely underexplored and are dominated by artisanal and small-scale gold miners. The majority of which were located in Migori County, on the banks of Lake Victoria. According to the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining, the gold production capacity of Migori alone stands at 34 tons per year that could earn an estimated 67 billion Kenya shillings, or $670 million annually. At any scale, gold mining is a risky activity from an economic and environmental standpoint. The women, men, and youth engaged in artisanal gold mining in Migori are exposed to various forms of risk, which pose direct threats to their health and the local environment. Major risks include occupational health and safety hazards in underground mines, poor ventilation, and pit collapse, which in extreme cases results in loss of human life.
I use it, like now I've invested in agriculture. It gives me money that I pump in agriculture. Again, it also, like the food I eat, the clothes I put on right now, they're all from that point.
We'll find that majority of the laborers in the sector are youth, and many of them are those who did not complete secondary education. So in one way or another, the mining sector is affecting youth education, and you'll find that a lot of youth drop out because they want to work in the sector. Secondly, there are other social ills which are associated with quick money, and mining being one of the sources. You'll find that there'll be early marriages because majority of young ladies will be attracted and they'll be coerced towards getting marriages. We also have early pregnancies whereby young girls will give birth because of the associated activities of mining. We also have issues of drug abuse because majority of the youth, they get the money, they can't invest the money and they use it in other drug-related activities. We also have issues of HIV and AIDS. Migori is one of the Nyanza counties which has high rates of HIV and AIDS, and these affect fish industry and mostly mining industry.
Both the government and artisanal gold miners need to develop strategies to address these seemingly high dropout rates and create skilled employment opportunities for women, men and youth in the ASGM sector.
Artisanal and small-scale gold mining, ASGM, presents both challenges and opportunities. Miners need education and encouragement to become part of the formal system, and by extension, address environmental impacts. Incentives can include technical and capacity building support, geological data information, training, market-based approaches that allow access to or financing mechanisms, tax abatement, linking ecological and economic concerns. MICA is therefore calling for support from the Government of Kenya and development partners to help address the challenges and unlock the sector's potential to spur socio-economic growth.
More than 100,000 students below the age of 15 years in Kenya are living with HIV, and most of them were born positive. These children are being brought up in an unfavorable environment that lacks supporting structures both at home and in school. In this video, we'll hear the voices of HIV positive students telling us about their experiences in schools and how they wish teachers, administrations, and fellow students would do things differently.
And I've been longing to meet with that teacher and tell them like, hey, mimi niko na hiyo virusi na mbona sikai hivyo venye ulikuwa unasema.
Slogan that used to say HIV and AIDS is a terrorist.
Yenye inaweza niwa haraka ni stigma.
Sure, because they think there's no right person to tell. All the teachers shall be judged for any wrong they do to the kids.
There are many teachers across the country who do not know if any of their current or past students are HIV positive. As the head of the National AIDS and STI Control Program, NASCOP, Dr. Martin Sirengo tells us, it is important for schools to be sensitive on how to handle those living with HIV.
The challenge we've had with the implementation of HIV among the young people, especially learners, is that a lot of the children on treatment are taking medicines and yet they do not know why they're taking those medicines. So the issue of disclosure is very key. For learners who are in boarding schools, they do not have a safe space to be able to take their medications, get appointments to go to the schools, largely because the school environment is not supportive. One of the reasons for that is because the teachers may not know the status of the children, and therefore that provides a barrier to the children being able to access the much needed services. Teachers in schools may not have the necessary skills to be able to support the learners, and that's why as NASCOP we have put together training materials to be able to capacity build teachers together with the Minister of Education, so that they can provide the right interventions for the learners.
One of the greatest challenges in the fight against HIV and AIDS is the stigma. From what the children have said, it is clearly very important for teachers to be in the forefront of fighting stigma, supporting HIV-positive learners, debunking myths, and spreading awareness about HIV. It calls for collaborative efforts between all bodies concerned, especially the Ministries of Health and Education. And finally, here's a personal message to you teachers from your students.
Take them as your own, guide them and counsel them to reduce the stigma thing that is going on, because that is the thing that brings us who are victimized the self-esteem to go down. And the moment the self-esteem goes down, we don't take the medicine, and it is bad. We need the medicine to keep us going. It doesn't mean that we have a death sentence when we have the HIV. Having groups sitting down doesn't have to be a guidance and counseling teacher. You can do that. It is possible. And we live a happy Kenya. We reduce the digits that are going high every now and then. They will go down. Because if one school does that, have that mentor group, and the other does the same, the whole county does the same, then at the end of the day, the rest of the country will be safe and will be AIDS-free country.
Treat the HIV-positive students like one of your own. Treat them equally, because they are also human. Don't neglect them. Treat them fairly.
Lack of business skills has been identified as a major challenge to the uptake and growth of entrepreneurship as a means of job creation among the youth in Kenya. Many young Kenyans, even those who have acquired higher education, are not equipped with practical skills of managing a business. This has led to many startups failing at inception, discouraging the budding entrepreneurs and keeping many others off this path. The Student Training for Entrepreneurial Promotion, STEP, was introduced to address this challenge by training youth in the basics of entrepreneurship. Developed by Germany's Leuphana University, it was introduced at the Kenyatta University through a partnership involving the German and the Kenyan National Commissions for UNESCO. With the support of UNESCO Regional Office for East Africa, national and county governments, STEP is now equipping out-of-school youth in several counties with business skills.
Welcome to Testa Free Company Limited. My name is Anzazi Kiti, the Managing Director. We deal with spices and natural food seasoning. We grind them, we crush them, we cook them and pack them. So we do all the manufacturing processes.
Anzazi was among the very first students of STEP while she was studying at Kenyatta University in 2012. After university, Anzazi worked for a top audit firm but quit after 2 years to found Testa Free Company. It has recorded tremendous growth.
So at the moment, we also stock in different outlets, around 21 outlets, with our major outlets being all the Chandarana Food Plus supermarkets. And since recently, we got Eastmart supermarket. So we have Chandarana that has 10 branches or outlets, and Eastmart that has 7 branches. And then we have salespeople in Mombasa, Kwale, Kilifi, in Kericho, even in some towns in Nairobi.
Although Anzazi holds a master's degree and is a certified public accountant, the practical approach to STEP training made all the difference to her business management skills.
Bookkeeping can be more theoretical, but through STEP it was more practical, that everything that you go through in a business needs to be documented. So you have to document every unit, every shilling, everything actually that goes through the business needs to be documented. So through bookkeeping and marketing, they also taught us some skills in marketing and going out there. So, but where I got most input was in the bookkeeping process, because they told us you don't really have to have system to put your books right, so you can put your books in any way as long as you write them down and make them clear.
This is Kumisa Sacco, where he sits in the leadership board as one of the founders. The Sacco started from humble beginnings by asking the youth to contribute 10 shillings daily into a savings kitty.
Indeed, we started with 10 bob. When we got that confidence from the members, they started to save more than that, from 50 bob up to 1,000 or more than that. But the monthly, we have monthly deposit that it doesn't have any minimum. Yeah.
Now, with close to 4,000 members, their loans portfolio is impressive.
Right now, we are doing around 4 million in a month. So that's the range. So our budget every month, 4 million. We are doing asset financing, where people are buying the motorbikes, the taxis, and the drugs, the pros, what. So I have some examples. Like these are the motorbikes. This is a person who we bought a rad, so the loan is not fully serviced. We have this one. This car, it's a taxi. I think it's in Uber, something like that. We do the asset financing. Then we have the normal loans for the self-development. So for that one, we give you 3 times your saving. And we are giving the terms of payment. We can do the daily payment or the monthly payment. That one is a standard one.
These youth are part of about 600 that have undergone STEP training. Evidently, this entrepreneurship training has the potential for a huge impact in employment creation, industrialization, and economic development. The success of this pilot phase is largely attributed to the partnerships between the implementing institutions, the national and the county governments.